Amend this bill to the House.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Honourable Parakura Horomia.
Tēnā koe. Ia koutou e tātahi atu I konei I te whare meere e tautoko ti atu te mahana o te mihimi o te tātou minita Māori kia koutou e taika atu. E te matua e reka atu I tikita te ia koe I rere noha atu tatana ki te whānau Mokomoko. Nā te mea e mohi atu tātou te ahui mā tātua whānui mo tēnei tino mate. No reira tēnā koutou. E tikatu I te mihi atu ia rātou e kore e kone. Ngā me pake ke mai rāno e whai atu e maupakari a muri a tēnei tino take. E te pai o te rangi nei, ko tai atu koutou ki te wāhi nei o ngā tangata o te whare meere hei tuku kōrua kia koutou. Aha koa ngā piki ngā heke te tino pā pauri o te mahi o te taura e pai ana e ki pēnei tonu. Nā wai e ki kia te kāwana te hea. E mohi atu tātou ko tērā no te hea. I roti a koutou te whakatohia e mihi koina. Ia koutou katoa ngā me e whai atu ia tau. Mihi koina ki te minita ki a rātou ngā me mai rāno e whawhai tonu atu ko mō tēnei tino whawhai. A tāhu atu ngā kupu o te waiata e ki atu tō tātou minita Māori. Mō te āhua e puta āwaha te waiata mō te āhua e tai atu te rangatira Mokomoko. He tino rangatira kia e tērā. Nā te mea e rochi āku, hea ai e ki atu ke te kāwana e whakahuri atu tō rātou mahi. E roro atu I te tae atu I te wānei. No reire mihi kauna ki ngā kupu e tuku atu te karaua. Ki ngā tangata I ngā katoa a te aroa hei ronga atu ki te mamai, ki te koi hoki I roti aia, aha koa te tūtatana ki te rere haere ki te wāhi mate, e mohi atu tātou aha koa nā wai nōwhe, ka tai atu tērā āhua ki te katoa. Tērā no te me I roti a ngā kupu o te waiatara. No reire tēnā koutou. Mr. Chair, we rise to support this bill and one of the dastardly deeds enacted by the Crown, and certainly one wonders and asks the question about giving a pardon and how real is that in reversing the shame and the burden inflicted on this rangatira in his own right. And he was a rangatira in his own right. That the soldiers, whoever else chose to take him to Auckland, and that he was then killed there and taken home to his marae in later years, and that in the mid-90s that there was a pardon given, and the whānau at that time and up to now have plausibly argued that it may have removed the stigma and shame from the individual, the rangatira Mokomoko, but certainly they've had to wear it and carry it through generations. Those issues are broader issues in relation to the development of Pai Māori there, and the kingitanga's move not to participate in war, and certainly in their way, and we have that lesson in the Second World War, that the death of Mokomoko brings to light a whole lot of other relevant issues in our history that we tend to have pushed under the carpet. And today we certainly support putting this to rest. It will never be put to rest, because at times the government has to pronounce their shame, and it's suggested that this is one way of doing it, but certainly no money or response in the sense of assets will correct what was done. Certainly the raiding of the lands and the confiscation in Mātātua, this was a platform and leverage used to do that, and that in history will tell you that it was thousands of acres. And again, I've always wondered at the great people who came over with Captain Cook, that they had an adeptness to be able to choose where to take. It is high producing property now. Other people manage a lot of it. Thank goodness whakatohia have control of some of it. But again, like Waikato and Taranaki, one wonders. I suppose, and the end of this act is to reproduces the text of the free pardon granted to Mokomoko and extends it out so the families can be recognised in the sense of that pardon. There's a key part in there where we talk about restoring the mana and the rangatiratanga of Mokomoko. I don't think those things were ever removed. That death was inflicted on him at the hands of the Crown does not necessarily necessitate the reasoning and rationale that that was removed from him. That what this does do is create a continuum of recognition that he was a rangatira in his own right, and his leadership of his people at that time for the reasons that were important is something that has to be really recognised. The confiscation of the land, it restores the character, mana and reputation of Mokomoko and the character, mana and reputation of his uri. That's a key part in this. And I think that's wonderful and that's okay. But hopefully it has to be bigger than that. That they have a settlement and we're heading into contemporary times. It also opens the question to a whole lot of other deeds done not too dissimilar to this around the country. What do we do about that? And I think in the sense of it being an initial entry into the Crown, being serious about apologising and trying to restore and redevelop its connections with those people is something that we have to consider. And I want to go to following his conviction and before execution, Mokomoko composed the following waiata, and the minister read out the opening lines. But I'd like to labour through it, excuse the pun, on some of the lines, not all of them, because I think they are very relevant and adept to what happened to this great leader. And it's a pronouncement of somebody who's close to death, knowing full well that he's going to be set upon by and put to death under the ruling of the governor of England. And he writes this great waiata that should resonate around this land to understand that people can still maintain their humility and have their rangatiratanga recognised through these lines that he wrote. And if you can picture that, in that time that he was close to that, he knew what was going to happen to him, and yet he still expressed in a fashion of any great rangatira what was going to happen to him. And he says, kei te hore te tangata tēnei a ki te raweke. They treat me like a common thief. Whakarewha te titiro te hukinga ia hau utiti. With confused view, I reflect on the vengeance taken and question the reason why. E ahi mumuri te pānga mai o te whakamā. The memory of the shame burns within me so deep. Te rerenga o te rā ko te kāwana kei Europe. With the passing of the time and the governor of Europe, and that to be taken to a place of far right or wrong, I am to die, as he said earlier on. Mana e ki, hei tūtaki ake mo te kuaha o te poaka. With the closing of the poaka, with the closing of the lid on my box, only then will I get peace and eternal rest. So here's somebody who knows he's being put to death for no reason whatsoever of his own doing, and he still recites those in recognition, and he mihi's to the people who put him down. It is indeed quite a dramatic situation, and I hope that we could be a lot more forgiving in contemporary times. And if we are serious about nationhood, that the resurrection of this bill and the adding to it in relation to Mokomoko's killing is something that we could join together and recognise. It is not just a pass in history or something that the minister puts up to make everybody feel good. It is something that is the right thing to do at the right time. And let's not just do it for the sake of it. Here is a man who's passed on, who forgives the perpetrators, but at the same time expresses his view in a very clear fashion that any rangatira would do. And I want to recognise the rangatira Mokomoko for the effort that he put in, and that we are here today as politicians and guardians of the better of this country, trying to put something right that was terribly wrong. Kia ora.
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Hikia Parata.
Tēnā koe te mana